Welcome back to MCReviews. Today we're going to be looking at the Technician by Matduke, remixed by the oh-so-infamous Neilio. So I haven't heard much of Matduke's off Monstercat stuff, but I did go check out the original mix of this song, and it's okay. It's mostly just repetitive, happy hardcore melodies with a shitty hardcore beat, and besides a decent drum and bass segment in the middle, it's all pretty much the same generic happy hardcore stuff that we've already talked about with some of his other tracks. But we aren't here to talk about the original mix, we're here to talk about the Neilio remix. So if any of you guys have been watching my reviews for a little while, you'll know that Neilio is just awful. Yeah, we don't get along well when it comes to our music styles. He makes hardstyle, and I just can't stand hardstyle. Hardcore could be okay, but hardstyle is just awful. It's the polar opposite of everything I enjoy in music. It's generic, repetitive, ravey, and has that god-awful beat that hardstyle is known for. So even if I don't like the original much, I find it hard to imagine Neilio making it anything but worse. The track starts with a couple of different hardstyle and hard dance style beats being layered over each other, and the occasional loud, distorted bass thing, which you hear a lot of these kind of tracks. A vocal drop from the original comes in saying the funky technician is back, and a little melody is added. Another vocal drop soon comes in saying sit back and relax, which is funny in a way, because it's kind of counterintuitive to what the whole theme of hardstyle is, but I'll let it pass. This whole time the song sounds like it's building to something, and after the vocal drop, the melodies are removed and the beat starts to swap between different hardstyle-y samples. A little glitchy melody quickly comes in with a modified version of one of the original track's melodies, and this melody is probably the best part of the song so far, and it's kind of enjoyable. You know, it's got that interesting glitchy element to it, which Neilio can do it right in some of the songs. The beat starts to speed up and the backing notes rise in pitch to form a pretty generic build-up. There's a vocal chop saying, now the time to relax your mind, the funky technician is back, which is again, you know, strangely counterintuitive because hardstyle seems like it's meant to be all about, you know, getting crazy and pumped up and all that stuff. And in all honesty, the drop starts off pretty decent. It's pretty much just a hard dance beat and the glitchy melody, both of which are bearable. It's important to distinguish between the hard dance and the hard style beats. Whereas a hard dance beat sounds like what you might hear in Strong or Pressure. I think that's the hard dance beat anyway. It might be the hardcore beat, but as far as I know, hard dance is the Stronger or Pressure sounding one, and the hard style beat is the one that I like to call the cancer sound, and it's the kind of thing you'd hear in something like The Only One. And this first part of the drop features that hard dance beat, so it's fine. This first section, on top of the beat and the glitchy melodies, occasionally has a little synthy note that comes in to flare it up, and as a whole, this section of the drop is not bad, but as the drop progresses along, you start to hear the drop building up with a backing note which increases in pitch in the same way you've heard in a million other tracks. And while the structure of this first drop, containing the second drop basically within the first drop, is pretty cool, the contents of the second drop is not. I knew it would have to happen at some point. I mean, it's a Neilio song, so it's pretty much unavoidable for there to be a hardstyle segment, which I despise. And this second drop is that. So the only change that I noticed in the second drop is that the beat changes from the somewhat acceptable hard dance beat to the awful hardstyle beat. And my issues with the second drop aren't limited to just the sound of the beat, because the way that the sounds are mixed makes it so incredibly overpowering that it's hard to hear anything else in the song but the beat. As for the occasional positive that this drop has, the beat occasionally kind of glitches out and stutters on a fast gate, which is cool and pretty unpredictable, and the synth notes that come in are really cool as well. But as a whole, that one beat change from hard dance to hard style single-handedly ruins this drop for me. The drop ends about as quickly as it came, and we find ourselves in a midsection, and in all honesty, this part of the song is pretty damn good. The melodies are nice and relaxed, there's no terrible beat to be found. I don't love the, you know, sit back and relax vocal chops, but everything else in this midsection is genuinely nice to listen to. It has a cool driving sub bass, a relaxing background pad, and some nice little melodies that pop in and out. As it goes along, a pretty ravey, distorted kind of melody comes in, and everything else just kind of drops out. It's okay, musically, it has some cool stuff that's done with its frequency, but it is still a pretty standard Neilio style melody. A build-up starts with this newly introduced main lead, building in time with the speed of the beat, and then it drops. And how should I put this? This drop is the best thing that involves the cancer sound that I've ever heard, and it's okay. As the drop goes along, it gets better and better, but at the start it's basically just two elements: the ravey melody from the build-up, which is okay at best, and the cancer sound. The cancer sound, or if you prefer the hardstyle beat, does this thing that some of the better hardstyle tracks out there do, where the beat, while acting as a beat, also kind of acts as a bass melody, as the beat changes in pitch and has its own little melody or chord progression that follows. And this first part of the song basically is just that okay melody, that okay ravey melody that I mentioned earlier, and the hardstyle beat on its own little chord progression. The first sign of change and of improvement in this third drop is when two things happen simultaneously. One is the beat improves by changing its pattern from the loopless dong 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 to a far less repetitive pattern, where the time in which the hardstyle sample is played actually changes somewhat instead of being static like it's been the entire song so far. The other significant change in the second segment of the drop is that a backing melody is added. It isn't much to start off with, but as it gets louder and more prominent as the song goes on, it gets better and better, and this is a significant improvement to the drop. The drop begins to wrap up with the main ravey melody being removed, and after a little longer the beat fades out, and then a little while longer the main melody fades out. And the song practically moves straight into the next build-up by reintroducing that glitchy melody from way back in the first drop and adding in a new beat which builds in speed and, you know, all that stuff you've heard before. The fourth drop is, as far as I can tell, it's the exact same as the first one, but that's not really an issue because the song had a completely different drop in between these copy and pasted drops, I guess you could say, and the first drop is one of the better parts of the song, so I'm pretty okay with it. The drop doesn't last long, and the song goes into a quick outro segment with the beat fading out. So yeah, this song's kind of interesting. It's not quite as bad as I was expecting, to be honest, and is by far Neilio's best work that I've come across so far. And so for the positives, the first drop was decent. The glitchy melody that the first and fourth drops has is pretty cool. The way that the beat can occasionally glitch out is pretty cool. The synth notes in the first drop are nice. The midsection is by far the best part of the song and is genuinely good. And the second half of the third drop is pretty decent too, with the more complex beat and melodies. As for the negatives, well, practically everything else. Obviously the hardstyle beat is really bad, and I still can't stand that sound. The ravey melodies I really dislike. The song is too repetitive and the build-ups are generic and unimaginative. While the song does have good elements, the bad for me outweigh the good on this one, and while I don't particularly like it, I certainly don't hate it like I did with his other two tracks. So I'm going to be giving Neilio's remix of The Technician a 4 out of 10. This song has given me a little bit more hope in Neilio as an artist, because he did show some potential, but it's still hardstyle and I'm never going to be able to enjoy that genre as far as I can tell. So yeah, let me know in the comments how you feel about this track. I think I might have been a little harsh on some of his last songs, but I'm really happy with where I put this one. Tell me how you'd rate it, what you didn't like about it, all that good stuff. Next up on the channel will be Pete's review of Hold Fast by San Holo, and after that we will be reviewing one of my favourite artists, Mrfijiwiji's first ever track on Monstercat. But until then, thanks for watching and I will see you next time.